just makes the evening, I know we have plenty of help preparing, but it makes the evening go so nice and smooth, and you actually have time to interact with the guests that are there. It's at Banquet West is way out on Marion Road and Fifth Avenue North. So it's like 12th Street to Marion Road and then north. And just let me know, or I will get the sign-up sheet out in just a jiff, so when you leave, you can sign up. It's Thursday.
Do we have any other announcements today? Okay. Go ahead. Thank you, Carol. Scott, would you help me with the chalice lighting, please? We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together. Thank you. And now if you would please stand if you're able in body and spirit, we're going to sing our first song, 186, Grieve Not Your Heart. Thank you. We're going to have our first reading today, and that is going to be called The Oversold. It's reading number 531. And I will go ahead and read the regular print if you will read the italicized. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, and the sources of nature are in our own minds. I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine.
There is deep power in which we exist, and whose attitude is accessible to us.
Every moment when the individual feels invaded by its memorable the soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silent, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one.
When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love.
Now is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now we would like to do our story of all ages, and we have Joe Green has graciously accepted to do the reading, and so he will take over at this point. And let all of our children come forward.
Looks like all the children are mine today. Good morning, everybody. Howdy. Kids, I'm reading a story called I Wonder, and I suspect at least one of you has read this book before. I wonder, words by K.A. Holt, pictures by Kennard Pack. What if the sun is really a kite? Is cereal afraid of the spoon? I wonder if sandwiches get mad when you bite them. What if the ocean is one big water bottle? Do tires get tired? I wonder if dragonflies dog paddle. Do bubbles tickle everything they touch? Is a fly a baby in the morning and an old man at night? Does a grasshopper take hopping lessons? I wonder if cars and trucks speak the same language. Do windmills ever get tired? Where are all the unicorns hiding? Maybe behind the windmills. I wonder if boy ladybugs are called boy bugs. What do clouds taste like? Do my toys miss me when I'm gone? How does a clock know what time it is? I wonder if shoes feel sad when they don't fit me anymore. Could there be a galaxy in my belly button? I wonder if books read us, too. What do stars do during the day? Is wind made or born? Do trees have dreams? I wonder if teddy bears ever cry. Why don't shadows smile when you smile? I wonder how tomorrow knows how to get here. I wonder why I wonder so much. Because you are wonderful. What do you wonder about when you look at the world? Everything is the answer. She wonders about everything. Yes, that's true. Okay. That's the end of that.
I love that book. I'm still wondering about the galaxy in my belly button.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that
Well, it is at this time during our service, we find it helpful to share the ups and downs of our lives by the practice of taking a stone and from our bowl, holding it in our hand, warming it, and expressing our thoughts of joy and our concern. And then placing the stone in the water so that the ripples of the water carry our joys and concerns out into the wider world. I'll begin by taking one stone to express. Well, any of you know me, you know I got my puppies. I got 2 German Shepherd Huskies, Zeus and Asha. Last month, Zeus started having seizures. And he had them again last week. And so I'm very concerned because my 2 puppies are extremely bonded. So he goes to the vet tomorrow, so hopefully we can get some medication for him. And so, any positive thoughts and energies would be very appreciative. I do have one concern, and that is that my dad, who has throat cancer, is starting radiation soon, and I've been asked for hospital to use his as well. I apologize. I hope y'all heard me back there because I forgot the mic. But okay, so this time we're going to open it up to anyone else who might have any thoughts or joys or concerns.
is JP Laz, and Sandrine, my wife, and I, we have been hosting potlucks every Wednesday this year. We've tried at least, but yeah, summer has taken a toll on us, and we are taking a little break from those. So we're really sorry, but yeah, we're trying to protect ourselves. We are going through some rough times. I will put a little joy on top of this. So some of you may know I started sculpting brain cells because I'm a neurobiologist and I also love art. And next month I will drive with one of my daughters to Texas to a hospital who asked me to make a whole installation with a lot of neurons carved out of wood. So I'm really excited about this.
Hi, I'm Janet, and this week I had a procedure on my neck because I was having a lot of pain in it, and that was on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to healing up from that so I'll feel better, but right now I don't feel so good, so I think I'm just recovering from that. One thing that I usually do on Sundays is I take Jennifer out to see Edie and Brandon. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that today. So if someone would be able to take my place, taking her over to Brandon. Oh, we got a volunteer, thank you. That would be great. And someone's already scheduled to take her home, bring her home, so thank you, Peter. Yeah, I was debating whether I should even come today, but I'm glad I'm here.
Thank you.
Well, I'm thankful for being here this morning. My husband is the kind of person who I always thought he'd be on his deathbed before he'd ever go to the doctor. But we were sitting down in the afternoon, and he said, I think I need to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and we got there before 6, and we were there for hours and hours and hours before they got him in a bed, and they did all this stuff with blood work and everything, and they finally decided he needed a CAT scan. And so we're thinking, oh, this is something where he might have to have a surgery. And as it turned out, it was not anything. He could go home. I mean, was something he needed, an infection. He needed to take some medication, but not surgery. So we got home, and by the time we got to bed, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. So, as I said, I'm happy to be here.
I have two things. One is I did have surgery, cataract, and everything is working out fine. And the other joy is, in fact, the Palaz. As the president of the congregation, it has been really wonderful that you've been doing that. Take the break and do whatever, but we hope that it works out again.
Thank you. Here comes Steve.
So my joy and concern is my sister and her husband and 2 youngest kids did show up last night. So far it's been good. But it's been a serious cause of stress for my children and me. So, but so far she's been wonderful.
Okay, well, I do have one joy. I wanted to end on a joy. I reconnected with a friend that I haven't talked to for quite some time, and we ended up talking for 2 hours this morning. So I was lucky I was even here on time. So this goes out to her. And then we have one final stone, and this is going to symbolize all the joys and concerns that were unspoken. And I'm going to just go ahead and put it into the water to ripple out. Now let us pause for a moment of silent reflection as we consider what we have just heard and what is in our own hearts and in our own minds. Okay, now if you're able and to stand, we do have another song on page 130 called "A Liberating Rose." Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to reading number 596, and that is Boundless Goodwill. And I'll read the regular print if you'll read the italicized. Let us cultivate boundless goodwill. Let none in anger or ill will wish another harm. Radiating friendliness over the whole world. By Maida Suda. Thank you. Now it is time to introduce our two speakers. We're going to start with Joe Green, a member of our congregation. I'm looking forward to hearing you. He did this just recently, and he is now our chair of our what is the lifelong learning, if I'm correct. Huh? So I'm going to introduce and let him take over from here, and he's going to tell you how his thinking has evolved.
So, chair-ish, I think, of a task force with kind of putting together lifelong learning for the upcoming season, which is a lot of fun. I don't know that I'm chair of the actual committee, or if there is a committee on that. But yeah, I'm Joe Green. I've been a member of the church for coming up on a couple of months probably, and I've been with you probably since January, and maybe in kindred spirit quite a bit longer than that. So I've actually written and rewritten this talk several times over the last month or so. I started out trying to inventory what it is that I believe today, and the conceit was that it was going to be in the form of a creed, modeled after the Nicene Creed, which I thought would be fun since UUs usually pretty much stand in staunch opposition to creeds. And it was kind of fun to write, but it got a little constricting, and I thought to myself that that's probably appropriate, that I feel stifled by a creed. So I gave up on that, but I'm glad that I started it because it made me really think about what it is that I believe, that I have strong conviction is truth for me, and differentiate that from what it is that I wonder about, what I suspect might be my truth, or what logically follows from that which I believe. My given topic today is how my views have evolved, and I would like to append something to that, actually. How my views have evolved so far, because life really is a bit of a continuing revelation, isn't it? It's a continuous evolution from who we once were to who we are now, and I want to emphasize that this isn't how my views have improved, but this is simply a reflection of my current beliefs and the path that led me here. I also want to say that many, maybe all of my ideas might differ from yours. Our faith, as Unitarian Universalists, thrives on diverse spiritualities and individual revelation, and I celebrate the uniqueness of each person's truth. And I believe that all of our truths describe the same mystery at the center of it all, and more on that soon. So to understand how my views have changed, I need to touch a bit on my past. Sometimes there's a good reason that I don't believe what I used to. Maybe it was foolish or untested. Sometimes it was even unkind or ignorant or embarrassing. Indeed, that's something that I've come to understand and to appreciate, that part of being human is to have some things in our past that we aren't proud of, but that we can be proud that we've moved on from. I was raised on a small farm outside a very small South Dakota town, and despite being 35 and a millennial, I joke that I didn't wear shoes or see a computer until I was in kindergarten. Like Unitarian Universalism itself, I have a Judeo-Christian background, and like Unitarian Universalism, I am explicitly not that anymore. Growing up, I often felt a feeling of closeness to God. I appreciated the top-down order I received from the Christian, specifically Lutheran cosmology. Everything had a place and rules and consequences. It was very easy for a child to understand. Although my family was mostly Lutheran, around middle school I spent some time in a friend's non-denominational church. They were basically Pentecostals, and although I was initially quite enamored with their passion, before long it became clear that many, if not all of the congregants, were coerced into their performative displays. That's not to say that they weren't true believers, but there was a man behind the curtain, so to speak, who manipulated them into that true belief. I don't fault them, or I try not to fault them, as I've healed from what it is that they did to us. And once that curtain was pulled back, once I saw the man behind there, I couldn't help but see it in every church, even back home with the Lutherans. So these experiences pushed me away from organized religion for a long time, and even now, 20 years later, as I'm talking to you, I still mourn the loss of the faith of my family. I'd lost my position in the universe, so surely given to me by that faith, and I suspect that many of you here can recall a similar time of unmooring. Indeed, I do mourn the loss, but I'm also glad for it, because to be moored is to be bound. Yes, to a familiar fellowship, but also to its ideas about how the world ought to work and even whose world this is. It was good to be unmoored, unbound, and freed to reconsider things from a fresh perspective and without the fear of eternal damnation. I even tried to reconsider my way back to the Lutherans a couple of times, but I never found a reasonable path back. Instead, I found a reasonable path to a survey study of the world's religions in college, a class that I still consider to be an extremely influential event in my life and on my beliefs today. I learned about Hinduism's concept of the Godhead, Brahma, the source from which all things arise. The idea that we are all part of this whole and complete being, yet all separate and individual. I learned about the Tao, the animating essence that runs through all things, about Buddhism and the cycle of death and rebirth ending in enlightenment. I learned about the Abrahamics too, but it was Eastern philosophy that really got me. They were so different from Christianity, yet they often addressed the same things. I felt like I was seeing the second side of a coin, or reading someone else's account of an event that I had witnessed myself. At this time in my life, I called myself a militant agnostic. I don't know and you can't either. I would happily tell that to anyone who tried to get a little too evangelical with me. And I still kind of feel that way, actually. There is no way to be certain, really, about cosmology. We can make inferences, we can make observations, and some are more repeatable than others. But no matter how empirical you get with it, there's always the chance that some new information is going to come along and screw everything up for you. A man named Joe Scott, who runs a YouTube channel mostly devoted to science, recently summed up the state of scientific cosmology like this, quote, "Pretty much every explanation for the beginning of the universe, the mantra is still, give us one miracle and we'll take it from there. One miracle, one last greatest mystery right at the center of it all. For me, I call that God." Even as an agnostic, I often felt some kind of connection to something greater than myself, and I tested out calling it the universe, referring to the systemic whole of which every observable thing is a part. I found awe in it and sometimes tried to influence it and to concentrate its essence by ritual and even prayer. I wondered about its nature, its possible consciousness, what I owed it aside from my mere existence. I wondered about its last mystery, unknowable and great and terrible. And it dawned on me that this is what the Hindus were talking about. That final thing at the center of it all, that from which all else begins, their Brahma. That's my whole and parts awe-inspiring universe. For me, that's God. It's what the Tao is, in so much as one can describe the eternal Tao. The connecting thread that animates and gives existence, for me, that's God. All the world's religions, all of science, every person's private beliefs, my own feeble attempts to describe these ideas and feelings, we're all just doing what little we can to describe that which is ultimately unknowable, to the great frustration of humans whose nature it is to know. It's probably time to start wrapping things up, and I'd like to share a few things that I believe and hold to be true. Some of the things those beliefs make me wonder, or what I think might logically follow from them. Here's where that creed conceit is going to come back in. If I say I believe, that means I hold it to be true for me, and more than that, though, I do find it compatible with other belief systems. So I believe is used sparingly. If I say I think, I wonder, or I suspect, that means I incorporate it into my spirituality, and I find it to be valuable for me, but it may not be universally compatible. So I believe that I, we, and everything makes up a vast whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. I believe that wholeness is God. I think a complete understanding of that wholeness is impossible, and that the mystery at the center of cosmology is a fundamental characteristic of existence. I believe in the interconnectedness of all things, and I think that connection is, at least in part, the animating force that makes existence real. I believe that interconnection is God. I wonder what our connection means for all of us as discrete entities. For example, when eating an apple, where do I end and the apple begins? That doesn't seem like a big question until you really start to think about it. Where do I end and you begin? I think that interconnecting force is what is sometimes called the soul, or in Hinduism the Atman, or in Taoism the Tao. And I think it inhabits everything, even things we don't generally consider to be alive. a concept kind of like Platonic ideals, maybe. I think that force, that peace of God that we all carry, can be concentrated differently and then it can be influenced. I think that's one reason for ritual and prayer. I think each being has a reason to be what it is. A pig is called to pigness, a tree is called to treeness, and likewise a human is called to humanness, irrespective of what we consider good or bad. I think humanness includes a charge to stewardship of ourselves and of our world. I think it includes a charge to be good. I think humanness includes a charge to love. So finally, on my way off the podium here, I do just want to say that in the course of writing this, I've been reminded how rare it is to have an original thought. I discovered that I have more or less independently arrived at a religious philosophy called panentheism. It's a far more robust and full school of thought than I could stumble into on my own. So I guess I encourage you to look it up if any of my listed beliefs have sparked an interest in you today. It's neat. That is not to say that I would call myself a panentheist today, though. Today I'm just me, evolved, yes, from who I was, and not yet evolved into who I will be. Thanks everyone for listening.
I love listening to speakers and other opinions because they become so inspiring. Our next speaker is going to be Scott Kunze, and he always inspires, whether it's through his gardening or his words or his puppies. So. Thank you.
I gotta say, that was magnificent. Thank you, Joe. Old man eyes. If anyone remembers my last spiritual journey speech, I made a whole list of title stories I mentioned, each to describe one of my adventures. Well, Janet made me email her filled out stories and put them all together. If you want, she has composed a short memoir of the original speech and all the stories combined now. It's over between the donuts and the cucumbers on that table. There's 3 copies there. If you want one and there's not one available, we can copy a few more right away. So please contact Janet. I hope you find it interesting. I did not want to rehash anything I had done earlier. So I decided to talk about what I learned since my last speech. I bought one of the books recommended by an earlier speaker about religious abuse. She thought Already Free by Mr. Bruce Tift would help me. Here it is. Or what's left of it after my puppy felt abandoned. The author of the book is someone who counsels using both psychotherapy and Buddhism. He even spells them out pretty simply. Psychotherapy says, we learned our coping patterns when we were children, how to fit in to survive when we were the most dependent on others, meaning our family. However, depending on our parents' needs, their chaos levels, and their resources available, some of the skills we learned do not necessarily serve us well in the present among the general population as adults. So, the goal is to identify the problem pattern, then the coping skill that caused the pattern, then deciding if the change is worth it. I mean, come on, guys. We really don't like change. And frankly, serenity is boring. Drama is fun. After that, all that's left is to find a new pattern or role model, implement the change, and see if the improvement is better. Easy peasy. The Buddhist view says that all that work is, or at least could be, just hiding from reality. We need to accept who we are and what we are experiencing right now. It's not to be avoided. The hard, the bad, the unpleasant parts of life are also part of the full spectrum of living, and they should also be embraced. with the exception that if something gets so bad that it risks your life to continue this way, then you need to change. If you're staying in the here and now, though, then each moment is unique on this earth, and there is no best way to live. But living in the moment also means there are no reflex answers or patterns to any situation. That's how they get around it. If you are depending on old patterns to respond to whatever, then you are not realizing this moment is completely a new thing to attend to. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is an option. Not accepting the truth of what is right here and now is suffering. Living on the hope of what should be is suffering. It's the one thing that both thoughts agree on, is learning how to live now instead of keep hoping to be fully alive in the future somewhere when something changes. Mr. Tiff says that the two therapies are not mergeable into one therapy. But you can jump back and forth between the two if one is more important at the moment. Each of these has already created change in me while reading the book. On the psychological side, I have a lifelong pattern that if I get relaxed and permit myself to think about the past, I'll have this big internal accuser going, "You did that!" and really cause an internal shockwave that's truly quite unpleasant. I used to jerk my head and scream, "Stop it!" and the act of screaming alone brought me out of it. I knew it was my mother's voice and have over the years been able to weaken or dampen the pattern, but I've never been able to remove it. You may have caught me at sometimes either jerking my head during a conversation or if it gets too quiet. Recently, Mom visited and started chewing out David, my renter and friend, about how poorly he was managing his garden. She wouldn't let it go. She returned the subject over and over. I asked her why she was doing this to David, and she said with an impish grin, "Because it's fun." That's when I realized that when I was a toddler, Mom used to entertain herself by doing this to me. The only thing that would make her stop was when I got to the point that I would berate myself for her, so she couldn't do it anymore. That was the cause of this pattern, and I did not need to entertain my mother anymore. Well, since then, I've spent a few lovely hours going through both fond and hard memories without any accuser interrupting. It has been nice. On the Buddhist side, this is hard to describe. One of the science articles on human development I read recently on hormonal growth spurts, we know the first two spurts. From 0 to 5 is one spurt, then the latent phase, then the teenage spurt hits, and all those changes occur. That's not news. What was news was that these people who were studying the blood hormonal patterns discovered that there was two more aging spurts, one about the age of 35, about the age of 60, and about the age of 85. We don't age gradually. We may wear out a part gradually, but we age in spurts. To my astonishment, I have lived long enough to experience another one of these growth spurts, and it has aged me. The number of things I can't do now that I would not have even worried about doing 2 years ago, it's alarming. If it wasn't for the Buddhist philosophy accepting fully where I am right here and right now, and an old phrase from a friend named Murphy, "Well, that's the new normal," I would be in a constant state of panic or despair right now. In Buddhist style, I try never to fall into patterns, especially in conversation. If I asked how I am, I stop and I find a correct word to answer that now, instead of, oh, fine. That alone creates a newer pattern of listening openly and answering honestly, instead of just using jargon. So, though the practices are conflicting, and both have the value of jumping back and forth, between the two can create more good than just doing one alone. I really hope to hear some of your stories about using either one of these, or both. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Now is the time when we ask for your help to do the work of our church through an offering. Half of the cash funds for the collection plate today will be donated to the local charity, and that is going to be Banquet West. Okay. Printed in your bulletin is the words to receive our offering, if you'd like to join us. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. Okay, we have one more song. Come My Way, My Truth, My Life, which is on page 89, if you'd like to stand, if you are able in spirit and body. And finally, we have one final reading. It is number 556, These Roses. And again, I'll do the regular if you'll do the italicized. These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or to better roses. They are for what they are. They exist with God today.
There is no time to them. They're simply a rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence.
Before a leaf bud has been burst, its whole life acts in the full-blown flower. There is no more in the leafless root. There is no less.
Its nature is satisfied, and it satisfies nature in all moments of life.
But we postpone or remember. We do not live in the present, but with reverted eye lament the past or heedless of the riches that surround us. Stand on tiptoe to foresee the future.
We cannot be active or strong until we too live in nature and the present of time.
Ralph Waldo Emerson. At this time, Scott, would you help me extinguish the chalice? The chalice is extinguished, but the light goes out thus into the world. And we ask that you remain seated while Carol plays her sonata. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'd like to welcome you for refreshments down in the basement, and then at 11:20, we will be doing a circle discussion up here. So we look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Information about the struggling with the positions we're trying to fill.
Oh, okay. That's, okay.
You and Joe would like to.